Hey, what's going on, Game Weepers? This is Eggs, and in today's video, we're going to be uncovering the 3 most broken champions for each role in patch 12.19, which is the live version on the Rift right now. So to know who these broken champions are, of course, make sure you stick around for the whole video. We'll be talking about why these champions are OP. You might even get a tip for each of them as well that you can apply on the Rift straight away. And guys, if you do want to master these champions, of course, you won't be able to in this video, but if you do want to master them, check out the Game Weep website in the description and comment section. You can also master the roles you would play them in, which is probably more important, and that's because our Challenger players and coaches from around the world upload daily content to our website that you can gain exclusive access to by signing up. So make sure you do that. Those links are down below, and let's get into the countdown. Now we'll start by talking about the 3 most broken top laners for 12.19. Now coming in at number 3, this is Darius. There are no nerfs to this champion in 12.19, nor to Trinity Force or Stridebreaker if you're going Stridebreaker into a lot of range or kiting compositions. So for Darius, 12.19 is pretty much how it's always been since 12.10 hit the Rift, the durability patch. Darius has really thrived because extended fights, which is what's happening in the top lane at the moment and in the game, Darius just loves them. And it's very, very difficult to actually lose a fight on Darius at the moment just because of that fact. The Conqueror stacking, the 5-second W cooldown you have, he's very difficult to beat, just like the next champion, this being Aatrox coming in at number 2. And you might be thinking, but Eclipse got nerfed. You're right, Eclipse did get nerfed pretty heavily in 12.19 in terms of the lethality. So it went down by 6, and even though you're getting more attack damage, doesn't really mean anything, right? But here's the saving grace for Aatrox. You have Gore Drinker. That's really all you need. And in most games, especially in solo queue, right, where people like playing assassins for the most part, they're going to be close range champions. And because in the majority of elos, people don't really know what range means. So by going Gore Drinker and using the active to its maximum effect, Aatrox can still do very well. Also keep in mind that the sweet spot bonus damage that Riot gave you not so long ago, that's still in the game, which is really just flying under the radar because everyone thinks Serrated Dirk Eclipse Aatrox is so broken. Now, if you can actually play this champion well and make use of his sweet spots on his Q, the champion feels so busted. But the best champion for 12.19 in the top lane is Garen, and the reason being is because Riot buffed Garen's crit damage in his judgment. So when you spin around like a Beyblade, you're going to deal more damage based off the crit you have. And because Garen builds crit, so a Mortal Reminder, and then after Mortal Reminder, you can even opt for stuff like Phantom Dancer, you can opt for Infinity Edge if you're a real Giga Chad, and I'd highly recommend that build if you're snowballing, and probably if the enemy team is very squishy. You deal so much damage. Once you get to 60% crit, you don't even need your ultimate to kill champions, so Garen is the number 1 top laner. Now heading into the jungle here, coming in at number 3, this is Diana. And Diana is here because of the Nash's Tooth and Sunfire Aegis setup. This is still in the game, and Diana is one of the best clearing junglers on the Rift, if not the best. The amount of time it takes you to do camps is pretty much nothing compared to every other jungler. You can also do a couple of camps at the same time. So Blue and Grom, for instance, it's very easy to do because of your AoE. Whether it's from your passive, your W, your Q, she is still such a strong champion, and because of your amazing gap closing with your E and of course your ultimate for team fights, you can catch people out as well as any other jungler. Just be sure if you pick Diana, you don't have too much AP in your composition. Now speaking of AP, the best AP jungler for 12.19, this is going to continue to be Fiddlesticks, who's really been broken ever since he got buffed a few patches ago. So whether it's the extra fear duration in your Q, but it's most likely going to be because of your extra Crowstorm damage. So in terms of the base damage, Riot buffed this, and in terms of the AP ratio, Riot also buffed this. This means that in terms of, well, when you hit level 6, the base damage is up. That means the spike is bigger, and once you start getting more AP in a game, Rocket Belt, Death Cap, Void Staff, Zhonya's, all of these items, and remember, Zhonya's is giving you more AP now, Fiddlesticks' scaling is kind of off chops. You'll be one-shotting champions. Just make sure if you're going to play Fiddlesticks, your ultimate is everything, right? So try to be a little bit cautious moving around the map without it, and when you do have it, use your control wards, use your effigies, vision is key. But the number 1 jungler, it kind of pains me to say it, for 12.19 and for another patch, this is Bel'Veth. And for this champion, honestly, I think she's the most innately broken champion in the game. Like, it doesn't even matter what Riot do to this champion, she's going to be busted forever. The damage reduction she has in her E, the extra range Riot gave her, no idea why they did that, but they did. It's the balance team. Like, she is just impossible to 1v1. She's got amazing clear, so even if she does fall behind, you can still come back into a game, and hopefully you guys know by now, this champion is just broken. So Bel'Veth is the number 1 jungler. Now heading into the mid lane, the 3rd best mid laner, the best attack damage mid laner for 12.19, this is going to continue to be Zed. And there are a few reasons why Zed is going to be OP still. So the energy buff to your E a few patches ago, so it costs 10 less energy to use your Shadow Slash. This is nice, of course, especially against melee champions and in the mid to late game when you start getting really low cooldowns and spamming your spells. But also, the actual sustain changes in 12.14, where Riot changed a bunch of runes, and they also changed refills and health potions, right, so they're less effective. Think about Zed. You're starting with 3 health pots. Longsword, 3 health pots. Who else is starting with that much sustain? So you out-sustain pretty much anyone during the laning phase, and because of the Scorch buff, when you take this with Transcendence in your secondary tree, you have a much better chance of winning lane now because your damage is going to stick, and because the enemy champions, the enemy mid laners, can't regenerate as much HP, when you actually chunk them, them, they're going to be more killable. This gets you snowballing, and we all know how good Zed is in the mid to late game. Maybe the Eclipse nerf is a bit of a hit because lethality is such an important stat for Zed, but you're still getting the armor penetration, and you still can go something like Duskblade or Prowler's Claw instead of Eclipse. Now, the number 2 champion, this is a champion who got changed massively in 12-19. This is Syndra. Now, I know Syndra's win rates aren't that impressive, but she's always had pretty bad win rates. But when she's played by the best players in the world, so I'm talking maybe like Master or even in Grandmaster and Challenger, Syndra has around a 50% win rate, and this is for a champion who takes time now to scale into a game. So her laning phase is weaker. That's what you guys have to understand. And by running something like First Strike, this allows you to scale quicker, right? Because you're getting more gold, so you can get to Luden's Tempest, you can get to Sorcerer's Shoes, Shadow Flame, so this accelerates your scaling. And once you do actually max out your passive, so your Splinter stacks, which is very important because they are empowering your abilities now, you become the strongest champion in the game. It's just a lot harder to navigate your way out of the early laning phase, so tough matchups become even tougher. Mediocre matchups probably become more favored to the enemy champions, and easy matchups might even be even now. So we do have to be a little bit careful during the laning phase, but generally speaking, Syndra is in a very strong position. Now, the number 1 mid laner for 12-19, this is another AP champion who got buffed in 12-19, this being Fizz. So Fizz's E's AP ratio, this went up by 15%. I don't know why it went up 15%, but Riot have decided to do this. The champion was performing well in every single elo, and to be honest, if they were going to buff him, I would have loved to have seen some sort of like mana buff to his E maybe, because still, Fizz has to go Luden's Tempest as an assassin AP mid laner. Like if you're a Fizz player, you would love to go Night Harvester or Rocket Belt, so unfortunately those items you still can't go, but with Luden's, with the magic penetration, and with the extra AP ratio, all of that getting pumped more into your E, which you're maxing first of course, Fizz is just the standout number 1 mid laner. Now heading down to the bot lane guys, and if you are enjoying these videos, these countdowns, make sure you let us know by leaving a like down below. And coming in at number 3 for the AD carries, this is Samira. And ever since Riot buffed her scaling, so the attack damage per level, and the attack damage in your Q, and remember your Q, you'll be life stealing more, right, because you'll be going shield bow, this makes Samira's mid to late game very hard to deal with. And if you do get snowballing early on, which is very possible, because there aren't really many AD carries who are that strong at the moment in the early laning phase, and even if they are, maybe someone like a Draven, you do very well into, because your W will stop his axes, and Draven doesn't like champions who can just jump into him. Remember as well, you can stop him using his E with your W as well. So Samira, if you want to counter pick, if you want to get in the enemy bot lane's face, awesome champion to pick. Now the number 2 champion for AD carries, this is Miss Fortune. So even though MF has been nerfed, in the majority of elos, she's still performing very well. Reason being, Q max, press the attack, and of course your ultimate. Once you start getting Collector, Infinity Edge, goodness me, you deal so much damage still. Now she might be weaker, especially weaker actually, in the laning phase, so I guess she's less oppressive, and you can actually catch her out if she missteps. But like all of these other champions, yes, she may have like weak points at the moment, but she's just generally way too strong, and it's impossible for me not to put her on this countdown. But the number 1 AD carry guys for 12-19 is another champion who's been buffed in 12-19, this being Kai'Sa. So the fact you're getting more AP in your passive, this opens up build variety to Kai'Sa. So if you're going something like Nash's Tooth, Mirror Mana, Luden's Tempest, or if you're actually just building a Nash's Tooth as part of your attack damage build, Kai'Sa is just better. Your passive is a massive part of your kit, so this dealing more damage is huge. And kind of like I said for Samira, because lots of champions who might do well against Kai'Sa, especially early on, well, these champions have been nerfed. So if you think about Draven getting nerfed a few patches ago, if we think about a champion like Caitlyn, even though Caitlyn is still doing pretty well at the moment, she's not what she was at the start of Season 12. She was getting picked all the time, champions like Jinx as well, Aphelios even. These are just much less of a threat to Kai'Sa because of all the nerfs in the last 18-19 patches. So Kai'Sa number 1 AD carry to pick. Now the supports, one support who might actually love playing with Kai'Sa, this is Blitzcrank, who got changed massively in 12-19, so you might see a random jungle or top lane Blitzcrank these days, but as a support he's still very strong. Why is this? That's because of the buffs Riot gave him, well, a few patches ago now. So they buffed his rocket grabs base damage, huge, right? Because this is a massive part of your kit. When you land your Q, your rocket grab, the enemy champion, much higher chance of them just getting blown up. They also increase your base damage in your ultimate, so when you hit level 6, this just enhances again your burst even more. So when you hook an enemy champion into your ultimate, they're gonna go boom. You can probably one-shot them yourself, to be honest. You don't even need that Kai'Sa or Samira next to you. So Blitzcrank number 3, and he does so well against a lot of popular supports, so he has to be in this video. Now number 2, the second best support, this is Zyra. So Zyra, one of the strongest laners, and honestly really good at scaling as well, because, well, really in team fights, let's think about it, all you have to do is press R, and you win the game. With Leandries, the tick damage, your plants as well, you will probably end up dealing the most damage in the entire game. Also, the change recently, so they actually buff Zyra's E, so you're not locked into the animation as long. This means you can land more damage and escape more damage, so more kills, less deaths. And a bit like Zed, the Scorch buff in 12-14 and the Sustain nerf means your poke, your damage with Comet and Scorch, this pairing, very deadly, Zyra number 2. But the number 1 support, guys, the final champion in this video, this is the champion, well, who still has the highest win rate in the game. This is Janna. I don't know how she's escaped nerfs again in 12-19, but with Glacial Augment, your Q, traveling at the speed of light, it's pretty much impossible to miss, and because you're such a good peeling champion these days, like, let's be honest, if we play against a Janna, we're probably going to get very, very annoyed. It's very hard to kill Janna and the champions around her, and even if she is 0-4, 0-5 during lane, she will probably still be the most useful champion in the game. So those were the 3 most broken supports, and those were the 3 most broken champions, guys, for each role in 12-19. Any thoughts, any comments, leave them down below, and until our next Season 12 upload, this has been EZCHALLENGER.